Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this YD Live on how to get into a top business school. With me, I have Alisha and Abhilash, students of TAK, and our former e-GMATers. So, Alisha, Abhilash, welcome to the session, and thank you for taking the time out to be with us today.
Thank you, Rajat. Always was always looking forward to having this session. Honestly, e-GMAT has been like a very big part of my MBA journey. So always grateful to have e-GMAT and uh, always happy to do this.
Okay.
Likewise, for me, GMAT has been a major part of my MBA journey, not just when I was taking the GMAT, but also during the application cycle because of interviews like these. So,
Oh,
very, very happy to do this.
so in many ways, this is payback time for you to really just give back to the community
Yeah.
and in the way you benefit. And thank you. This is, I think, very very useful for us. The objective of doing these interviews is to make sure that our students know what are the right next steps, and and so that they can learn from the mistakes you may made and the good decisions you've made and the strategies you've used to get into top schools. So we're going to talk about a few things. So both of you are married, both of you are studying at TAC, and I think this is one of the first sessions where we've had a couple uh, uh, in an interview, and you guys had the option to go to Ross as well in addition to TAC, and so we're going to talk about how did you go about doing this. But let's kind of start with your background. Tell us, let's kind of start with Alisha first. What did you do before joining TAC, and why an MBA at this stage of your career? Let's start with that.
So, I worked at a boutique investment bank for 3 years, and then I worked at in a VC fund. So, total 5 years of experience. And why an MBA now? Essentially, I do want to make a pivot, and I wanted to explore world beyond India. And when I say world beyond India, the US always, seemed like the right place to be in. And so I started thinking about an MBA, somewhere in between these 5 years. So you can say like 2018, 2019. And it took a while to craft that perfect MBA application, story, work experience. And now I'm here.
Okay. And you were a graduate of Lady Shri Ram College,
Yes.
so
I
okay,
studied statistics, moved to finance, and now I'm doing this.
perfect. That's good. Abhilash, what about you?
I had 7 years of work experience before I came to TAC. I graduated in 2015 from Shahid Sukhdev College of Business Studies. I did my finance there, and then was always interested in finance. So also ended up pursuing my CFA while I was working. But the first job, so one overarching theme in my 7 years of experience, at least before MBA, was I always wanted to explore and I wanted to understand for myself, okay, what am I interested in, so that when I go for an MBA, I do have clarity in terms of what do I want to pursue. So I started my career at McKinsey and Company. I worked there for a couple of years, and then wanted to also understand basically what's happening around the country, and social impact was very close to my heart, and that's why I made a pivot from McKinsey to an organization called Dasra. It's based out of Bombay. While the work was great, I felt that maybe it's not the right work for me, and hence I wanted to move back to the for-profit world. And that's when I kind of decided to join venture capital, and I joined Matrix Partners India. And while I was at Matrix, I was working with a lot of entrepreneurs. I was working in tech, specifically studying like consumer tech, ed tech, and fintech. And at that time, this company called Swiggy was kind of growing up significantly, right? And they were setting up a new team where they gave an opportunity to me to work with the CEO directly on the long-term strategy. And while I was at Matrix, I had already made up my mind to apply for an MBA, but because of this opportunity, I said, okay, I can wait for a bit, but this opportunity is too good to let go, and hence I decided to make my final pivot to Swiggy, and I worked there for 3 years. So in the last like 3 to 4 years before my MBA, I was primarily working in tech, first in venture capital, and then in a more operating role at a large consumer tech startup in India.
Okay, that's good. Working with Bitsim is always great, and Swiggy being led by Bitsim, really
Yeah.
good. So let's kind of start with the challenges. And I think let's start with the GMAT challenges. A lot of our students are still taking the test. So Abhilash, we'll start with you. You have a 740 on the GMAT. What are the key challenges you faced, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, so Rajat, I think probably one thing that is not very widely known is I actually, like, this was my third attempt at giving GMAT. So
I actually didn't know that. So,
yeah, so I gave my first attempt back in college when in 2014, where when I was all like I was when I was preparing for CAT as well. So I got a 710 at that time. I was not happy with my score because like I wanted to apply to ISB at that time, and my classmates were getting like a better score. So I thought, okay, like, there's room for improvement. And then I gave my second attempt in 2016. I got like a 670, and then at that time I did like a lot of introspection, and I realized that the approach that I've been taking is kind of very bad because one, uh, I because I was studying for CAT, I thought at that time that okay, GMAT is an extension of CAT, and hence the techniques, the content, and the concepts I learned during my CAT is what I was applying to my GMAT exam as well, and that was not working out for me. I also then, like, after 2016, I thought of realized this, and then I thought, I'll probably apply. I'll enroll in a specialized GMAT coaching institute, and I looked at a few offline institutes, and I did enroll in one of them. And the challenge, like, while the concepts was okay, but the challenge I faced there was they did not have a lot of proprietary practice material, and hence either I ended up repeating my questions, and hence I was not able to get good enough practice, or I was not able to practice enough at all. And then one of my friends, he used e-GMAT, and he suggested that I enroll for e-GMAT, and then that was probably like one of the life-changing decisions for me during my MBA journey. I realized that verbal was a weak area for me, and the strength of e-GMAT's verbal program kind of helped me understand the basics and practice, and also take the marks, and that helped me improve my score ultimately to 740, which I got in 2019.
okay. And you were one of the first people who actually used the Sigmax mocks as well.
Yeah.
If I remember, yes, yes, that's good. And so I think you recognized verbal was your weakness. You worked on it, and you were able to get. What was your verbal score in the end?
It was 40. I
40.
started with like 30, 31, and then I improved to 40.
40. Alisha, you had a very different journey. You talk about your GMAT experience because GMAT wasn't. I mean, you probably took 3-4 attempts as well.
Over 2 years.
4 attempts. And over what, 2 years you said?
Yes.
And the GMAT wasn't as kind to you as it was to Abhilash. So talk about your GMAT journey.
I think the GMAT wasn't kind to me because I wasn't kind enough to my GMAT prep. Being very honest, I had all the right resources. I had Abhilash also there to as guidance because he was done with the GMAT when I started preparing, and plus I also had like the e-GMAT team. I could always reach out to them. I knew the right resources, but I was not doing the right things. So my GMAT journey started in July 2019 is when I started studying, and I took 4 attempts after that over a course of 2 years. So every 6 months I would just take the exam. And the issue with my prep was that either I was not very focused on the prep, that this is the only thing I'm doing outside of work, or I was always in a hurry that I want to get it over with. I want to get done with the GMAT. I want to get that right score. I will get it because everyone else just gets 700, 720 without studying, so I will also be able to, and beyond that, to get a score I'll have to study. And so there were a couple of mistakes over here. First, always being in a hurry. Two, not being able to focus fully on GMAT prep. And because of all these things, when you're studying, e-GMAT teaches you everything in the right way. That first build your concept, then you do cementing, then you move on to those ability quizzes, and then the utilize the scholaranium. But when if you skip any of these steps, you are going to falter either in the your mocks or your exams, whatever. And that's what used to happen to me just for a very long time. And once I started doing all those things the way your videos teach you how to do, is when I managed a good score, good enough score. It could have been better, but I was so done with the exam that I never thought of retaking it again.
And I think this is something which is really important with regards to the context piece here. That is that you are a very bright individual. I mean, you've done really well in school. There's a reason you got into LSR, and even for someone who's very smart, if you're not completely focused, hitting that 90th, 91st, 95th percentile, you're gonna miss that. And
I
I think,
Yeah. There's actually one thing over here. I didn't know how much I can talk about the GMAT exam right now, but one thing I feel is that everyone who's preparing for the exam, most of the people, we have had certain backgrounds back in school. Everyone was bright in school. Some people continued staying bright in college. So when you're taking this, you feel that the way I used to study back then is going to be is can be replicated here, and it will work out. Because as especially as Indian students, we are used to studying at the last minute. We will just do everything one day, 1 week, just at the last stretch, and we'll get good marks. That's not what happens here. And I think that's a very big realization people need to have during their prep. That even if you take 4 months a date 4 months ahead of time, and you realize that in the last 1 month I'm going to stretch it out and I'll manage, that's not going to work out.
you have to be consistent.
Very.
You have to build the skills, and this is something I think that piece, which is the reason why this is really important, is because I think even right now at tuck, that's kind of what it is. You can't really just stretch at the last minute and mug up and go give the test and it's going to work out for you. No, it's not.
Yeah, that's what we were discussing just yesterday.
Yes. And I think that's a very key piece. If you're studying for the GMAT, don't bring your good habits, not your bad habits piece. And I think don't procrastinate. Really, really important over there. You said you were done with the test, okay? So let's kind of talk about now to the application. And by the way, from those of you who are there, we do take questions. We're about 12 minutes into the session. I have a prepared Q&A for about another 28 minutes or so. And then after that, if you have questions, continue posting questions, and we'll take those questions in the order that they come in. So let's talk about leadership. I mean, you guys, Abhilash, you worked at McKinsey. Alisha, you worked at a VC firm, early stage VC firm. So tell us, what questions did you ask yourself when you were looking for leadership in your profile, and then how did you go about this deliberation process?
You want to go first?
I actually want you to go first because I have something to add here after
Okay.
you say it.
I think for me, it was basically one understanding what does leadership actually mean, right, in the context of B school applications. And then when I kind of did my own research, I realized that there were 2 3 things which are very important to bring about in your leadership stories. One is influencing without authority. So how well do you work in cross functional teams? And if you do not have direct authority or somebody, would you still be able to work with that person and help take the team forward? The second thing is, uh, how well do you deal with difficult situations, and what solutions do you come up with? Are you creative enough to come up with innovative solutions in the face of a difficult, challenging situation? That is the second thing. The third thing is generally teamwork, right? If somebody in your team is down and out, like, how well do you manage that situation? I thought about these
So this
three.
was your three kind of, these are the things that the questions that you asked.
Correct.
Where are scenarios where I had no authority but I made an impact?
Right.
What was a difficult situation I was in and I was able to come out of it? And then
Right.
the teamwork, what the hell is that?
Like, you want me to share examples of?
Yes, absolutely. What are those real examples?
So, like, recently, like at Swiggy, for example, I was part of I was part of the CEO's office in the strategy and investments team, and basically my role was to shape the long-term strategy of the company, and a part of that strategy is to also think about inorganic growth opportunities, which is basically thinking about M&A. So, if you do want to achieve a certain business outcome, can you actually go out and acquire a company? And one such company that we kind of ended up investing in was Rapido, and it came out in the news recently. And the difficult situation there was, it was very difficult. So it was to make up a decision whether to invest $100 million, $150 million in a company or not. You need to work with literally 50 people in your organization. You need to work with people in finance, with people in operations, with people in, like, sales and marketing, with the top management, with the product folks, right? And all of these teams,
You need to convince all of them that this is a good thing.
one, you need to convince that it's a good thing, and second, if you do end up convincing them, to convince the management and the board, you want input from these teams, right? And while making this acquisition is a priority for you, because you understand that deals are competitive, there might be a competitive bid, but these teams had their own individual priorities as well. So then how do you convince them to prioritize my work over their work, and help navigate that situation is something that I've talked about in my applications as well.
Okay, that's a good thing. Yes, it is where you don't have authority. You don't have authority over the operations team.
Right,
In fact, they have their own targets to meet,
right, right,
and essentially it is a difficult situation, because if you go take this forward and you do all of this hard work and someone else gives a bigger offer that makes the return on investment bad, then all of that hard work is gone. So, and of course, you're getting people to go in, so that's good.
right, right.
That's a good. Alisha, what about you?
So the reason why I wanted to go after Abhilash, so I have about 5 years of experience. He has 7. He has had more senior roles in the in the organizations that he has worked for compared to me. So while I did have some instances of influencing without authority in my, my own experiences of convincing the CEO to start a sub vertical in both my organizations, but I felt that I should be using more instances from outside of my core work in my application compared to the instances that what I did in my actual jobs. And I had many examples, and my consultant also worked with me to
Yeah, I
tell
was going to ask you about the consultant piece. So I think let's start with the framework, and then we'll talk about what roles because both of you work with two different consultants, and so we're going to talk
uh,
about that. So I think first let's start with the framework, and then follow on. Let's talk about what the
so
consultant is.
my framework was more about the kind of so when I talk about initiatives, talk about leadership, for me it was more about what kind of initiatives I have taken outside of my work, where I have essentially, like, it's my initiative, I am leading it, I am managing a group of people to create some good in the society. And I had a couple of examples for that. They were not large scale that I am
Tell
managing.
us, tell us.
They were not large scale that I'm managing 500 people or 100 people. They were very small scale, but they added a lot of color and value to my profile. For example, uh, actually, this is something Abhilash and I also worked on together. So we had both worked in investing. So we knew how to kind of how early stage, what kind of things early stage companies need. So we started a small initiative. Where we were helping women entrepreneurs and small scale entrepreneurs, kind of who wanted to have their small scale businesses essentially get their feet off the ground. Basic whatever kind of advice or suggestions they needed, we would consult them on the side. Like, this was additional to our job. In addition to this, I was working with a small initiative called Binge Jobs, where I was mentoring college students in deciding careers post undergrad, which is something that a lot of undergrads, especially who are not in tier 1 colleges, don't have access to.
That's true.
In those 5 years like of work experience, I also started an initiative where I was so as a kid I used to read a lot. My mom inculcated in me this habit of reading books before sleeping, and I felt that people who were in underprivileged schools they didn't even know the concept of a library. They didn't know what reading was for fun, enjoyment, pleasure. So we partnered with a couple of schools where we would go where, like, there was a team of 7-8 people who would go every Saturday and conduct workshops. And this initiative continued for a while, and there were a lot of learning outcomes which there were other people who were managing and understanding. So these kind of examples I put somewhere in my application, wherever, for whichever school it fit. And
Okay.
that did add value, because I mean, it was one small point in my CV, but my interview went on about it. Like, I would discuss it for 10 minutes, because those were the kind of questions the interviewer would ask me.
Very interesting. And I think the piece which is there is, I mean, anyone who's listening to this has upwards of a year before they actually apply. Some of you who are in your final year right now and getting done with the GMAT are probably attending. These are classical examples that, I mean, they are evergreen. I mean, I don't think they're going to lose their sheen 5 years from now or 4 years from now even. So looking at, hey, where you don't have authority, how do you drive influence? difficult situations, or and using the same principles. You didn't have authority with these schools, Alicia, that we talked about, and that you talked about, and you were able to drive impact by convincing that, hey, let's kind of do some good out there. So that's really good. So very different sort of examples, both of you. So my question really is: A, how did you get this framework? What is the role of admission consultants? And then B, in kind of making you think through this, and kind of finalizing, these experiences make more sense versus these other ones that you have. Because one of the big struggles is, okay, first of all, how do I find them? Then once I start getting them, I find so many. How do I choose which one to put forward?
Right. Uh, Probably I can start on this one, right? I think so. I worked with my consultant, and she was
Start. Tell
amazing.
us, who do you work? Who did you work with?
I worked with Mansi Diwan.
Hmm.
She's based out of Delhi, and she's an amazing human being above anything else. And she really helped me through my MBA application journey, and a lot of the success that I have right now with MBA applications is because of her entirety. I think the key role that she played in terms of my MBA applications is one, selecting the right schools, because like in an MBA application, like once people are past the GMAT phase, it's also important to understand, okay, what is the, like, you need to research what is the culture of the school and whether you fit into that culture or not. So understanding what school stands for what is something that I would have had to like do a lot of research myself, but because I had Mansi, she helped me understand what each school stands for. The second thing is also what each school is looking for, right? Like the schools that are selected. So what is the criteria? What kind of things do they like, what kind of things do they don't like, so making me understand the criteria, and right, and once you have the criteria, like helping you introspect, pushing you to think of your life experiences that kind of conform to that criteria, right? Sometimes, like, probably, at least I did not realize the power of introspection, and I would think very surface level, but she would push me a lot that, after two or three calls with her, I would realize, oh, this is something that I did, but and it fits perfectly into this situation, and why did not I think of this earlier, right? So I think, to summarize, the role of a B school consultant is basically, one, to help you understand what schools you should apply to. Second, understand what will make you successful. Third, figuring out your life stories and your experiences that fit into that criteria. And yeah, and then lastly, basically, like, bringing everything together so that you are presenting one coherent, consistent story, and your story is not overall, like, all over the place.
Got it. Okay. What about you, Alicia? That's very
in
well said.
addition to in addition to one more point I wanted to add, I think, in addition to everything he said, your consultant is also your biggest cheerleader, because if they are not, you should not have them as your consultant. So I worked with Poonam Tandon. She runs a company called My Essay Review. She's based out of the US, but is very accommodating to timings in IST. um, so my situation was similar, in the sense that, while I used to think that I introspect a lot because I journal every night almost, I realized only after the questionnaire that she gave me that, well, I have really not thought my life story through. And the process was essentially her figuring out who I am, where I've come from, what my motivations have been, the kind of experiences I've had in my life. And it's a very detailed questionnaire of 20-30 questions, but you'll need to spend a lot of time on that. So as I jotted down the answers over there, you don't have to have like everything in perfect sentences or anything. You just need to give her an idea of this is who you are. After that, we sat together, we figured out what kind of schools would be perfect for me. She Basically, we used the framework that Ross provides, because I honestly like it, she liked it, and we used that framework to select the kind of schools, and I filled in details. And after that, the entire process of writing the essay started. And now, because she knew what my stories were, she in fact started asking me more questions related to this experience, that experience. And that's where I understood that, okay, I don't need to always make my work experience shine in every single essay. I have to show that I have a personality outside of work too, and that also matters. So teaching you these things, being your cheerleader in the sense that you are not confident of the schools that you are shortlisted, but your consultant is cheering for you, telling you that it's not just these schools, you can try for bigger things also. In round 2 we'll try for an M7, etc., and you can do it. So those things really matter. And these things only like a right consultant can do for you.
I'm
um,
just looking at what you guys said, with regards to what a consultant provides, and in many ways, there are three words that come to me. So helping you choose schools, which both of you have alluded to in different ways. That's kind of in many ways it's like a life coach. You really just say, hey, this is I'm going to channelize your energy. Um, Introspection, very big thing. To introspect to a degree. If and I think about another person who makes you introspect in many ways, a psychologist or a psychiatrist, that allows you to do that.
yeah.
You know, and then cheerleading. That's something that usually a parent does. They cheer you on and they push you in school, and somehow they kind of stop doing that when you once you graduate from college and you need another cheerleader. But yeah, I mean, in many ways, would you agree? I mean, good consultants kind of play these roles in that.
And good consultants who have that experience of working with multiple schools, because they know what kind of a story you not a story, but what kind of an application or the application ingredients you're supposed to have for each school, which
Yeah.
some consultants don't know,
And
I
also, I think knowing when to play what role is also very important, because, like, if you are like sort of overly supportive, then, like, people like me can slack and they can kind of delay the things to the end. So applying the right pressure at the right time and providing the right kind of, like, playing the right kind of role at the relevant time is also very important. Sometimes MBA application become very stressful, right? Like, you're managing your job, you're managing like 2 to 3 or 4 applications at the same time. You have your interviews coming up, and at that time, what you need most is probably not no, okay, what can I do more, but also telling you that, okay, what you have done is enough, and you will shine. So yeah, I think it's
So
important
that
to,
experience definitely helps.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So, guys, we have 10 more minutes before, or about 13 more minutes before we can take your question and answer that. About 5 questions there. So put in more questions. Now let's get to talk. And then and I think what Alisha told me is, Abhilash, you're going to take on this question. And Tuck is this very specific question that says, hey, Tuck students recognize how their individuality adds to the fabric of Tuck. Tell us who you are. So my question to you is, what the hell is this fabric of Tuck? And how did you understand it, and how did you express your individuality? I mean, you were there, so you obviously aced this one. So
Yeah, so I think, like, so one, I have a better understanding of what this fabric of Tuck is after attending like Tuck Launch, which is our 2 week long orientation program, and it just ended last week. But I think the fabric of Tuck is kind of summarized in their mission statement, right? Which is, Tuck creates wise and decisive leaders who better the world through business, right? And basically, the fabric of Tuck is one, a, a lot of importance given to community. So people, like, it's a school with a small class size. Like, we only have 290 students, as compared to other schools, which have like more than 500 students as well. So you get to know a lot of the people in your batch, right? In fact, that was one of the tasks given to us right at start, that you have to interact with everyone in your batch within 1 year. The second thing is also because of the location. We are actually like some like 2 hours away from Boston. We are situated in a town whose population is 11,000 people, and 7,000 people are Dartmouth University students. So basically, the
I think what you want to say is, and I've visited Tuck. Tuck is in the middle of nowhere.
Yes,
exactly. I couldn't say
we
that
don't get
myself.
mobile network also here, guys.
Yeah. So it's just in the middle of nowhere, right? And you have like all of these amazing students, and if they want to like connect with each other, they do not have anybody else to connect to, right? Like you have to like travel for 2 hours to connect to somebody. So by design, like the program is like the program kind of helps you connect with your professors, with like other staff members, with your peer students a lot more effectively. So there's a sense of community, there's a sense of teamwork, and there's a sense of empathy as well, empathy towards the community as well as empathy towards the society. uh, they always educate you to kind of uh, be sort of moral in terms of the decisions you take. So that, I would say, is probably the elusive fabric of Tuck that we are still in the process of understanding ourselves.
And I think what makes Talk so good is that in many ways, despite being in the middle of nowhere, it has always had excellent post MBA employments.
Yes.
Even I mean, I remember 2003, 2004. Harvard was struggling to hit that 90%. Tuck hit 94%.
Right.
2008, 2009, the downturn. Harvard was struggling, and again, Tuck hit
Absolutely.
that. Again, the small class size does have an impact, but just the fact that it's in the middle of nowhere gives Tuck a very significant disadvantage, and doing that
Absolutely.
despite that disadvantage is
Absolutely.
incredible. And what you've been telling me is that you're already seeing companies come in.
Yeah.
Microsoft already opened its internship uh, offers, or rather, the portal that you can apply the applications there, uh, and so on and so
Absolutely.
forth. So yeah, what about you? Do you want to add anything to it, Alicia?
No, just to give examples from whatever Abhilash was saying, I would say so. When you go to a school in a big city, you have to understand that there will be a lot of people who come there from those cities, and they like I studied in Delhi. I was from Delhi. I had a social life outside of my workplace, outside of my college too. Like I would have friends in college. I would have friends outside of college. But if you put me in a rural town, I will be forced to bond only with the people in that rural town, right? And that's how those strong, lifelong bonds are created. Secondly, like whenever you step out, do you go to any of these local cafes, pubs, bars, whatever? Like you will find everyone in the same places. Like there are 5, 6 places where everyone hangs out, and that doesn't just include your batchmates; it includes your professors and anyone who visits campus also. So it can be, someone giving a talk, someone hosting a competition or something, and in this brief period only we have all had drinks with our professors in one of the local bars, because not because they are coming there to meet us, because there someone will be there and they'll see you, you'll see them, you'll establish a bond, and it just makes the whole experience much more richer, I feel.
Uh,
Makes sense. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just want to add like a couple of things. So Tuck has probably one of the best professor to student ratios. We'll probably like 5 6 students per professor or something of that sort. And what it does is like your professor is is able to completely focus on you, right? And you are able to establish those connections outside of the classroom as well. A lot of these professors are researchers. They advise like some of the biggest companies in the world, and they have a wealth of knowledge, right? Probably at some of the other schools you are not able to leverage that wealth of knowledge because you have so many students kind of trying to access that. But at TAC, like because you have such a small student body, you are able to develop those one-to-one connections with the professors as well. So
I-
amazing.
And Tuck has
And
some excellent professors from what again from my time. I remember folks such as Vijay
Yeah,
Govindrajan and a few other
yeah,
folks. So so yeah, it's just it's surprising that Tuck can attract such talent,
yeah,
and they
given where
also,
it is.
the professors also want to kind of bond with you. They create that
I don't know what else
boundary.
anyway.
Because so we exempted accounting, but our friends were telling us yesterday that the accounting professor told them that so she rides bikes, and she said that I have 10 of them in my place, so if you ever want one to go bicycling around Hanover, you can feel free to do that. She's also hosting lunches in small groups with the students so that she can get to know them more, not to clear doubts, just to get to know them more.
yeah.
And I have never heard of any of these stories from any other place, and I have friends in a lot of business schools.
I absolutely agree. Something which is there. So I mean, we have another 7 minutes or so. So let's talk about the interview. How was the interview process for you guys? So Alicia, why don't you go first?
Yeah.
How did you prepare for it? What was the interview like? What did you guys talk about, and how do you think other people should prepare for the
So
interview?
my prep for my interview was very. I mean, I applied a lot of math to it. I opened GMAT Club. I saw. I made a list of all the questions. I copy pasted all the questions from the debriefs from the last 3 4 years. I copy pasted them, categorized them into different things. So one can be about leadership, one can be about teamwork, one will be about general culture. One is just uh, these are questions apart from the tell me about yourself, short term goals, long term goals, etc. So these were like the behavioral fit questions. Made a list, bucketed them, found stories from my, of course, like there was an introspection involved here also. but found stories from my own journey, listed them, like just made a note. And that's when, I knew that, okay, I have enough material to cover. And then, it was just about practicing. So we would practice together, we would practice with some of our friends, consultants. So, all those different sets of people were advising us about.
Just as since you talked about a mathematical way, how many mock interviews did you do with your friends, consultant, between each other, just to make sure that your delivery was refined enough?
See, for the first one, I would have done. So my first interview is actually Tuck. I did maybe three in total. Abhilash, do you remember?
Yeah, roughly about the same. Yeah.
Yeah, because apart from that, like three also, two to three, two full interviews, I would say. And apart from that, we would rehearse questions, not the
Yeah, yeah.
whole piece. So those were too many. We don't remember because we were also on a vacation before my Duke interview, and that's when we were rehearsing. So like there were a lot of instances
So
like that.
each question probably 5 to 10 rehearsed, 5 to 10 times, refined. You got feedback on that.
I think so. Like with amongst different people or just recording yourself, it's not just taking feedback from others. It's about I would record myself on my phone, listen to myself, whether I'm crossing that 3 minute, 4 minute time limit for like a long question or a 2 minute limit for a short-ish question. So I would do all those things also. I think after two, three people give you feedback, there's also that level of self-reflection that's important.
So
So
just you had a list of questions. You had
yeah.
that lookup table that you really said, this is the question.
Yeah.
These are the points I'm going to talk about. Then you had the refinement based on your response to that lookup table, and that's how you got to be a winning interviewee. Is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
is is what I would say.
Rajat, just one thing I'll probably add there is even so all of these things I did, but I did like she also did one more thing. But basically, before even arriving at questions, it's important to identify the themes of questions, right? So, uh, what is a B school interview testing you on? They want to understand your sort of life story in terms of where you're coming from and what do you want to do after MBA and why MBA kind of fits into your plans. That's one. The second thing is also understanding more about why that particular school. So you need to prepare like a very detailed answer in terms of why you are interested in that particular school only. The third thing is on your leadership. So they'll have like a lot of questions asking you, okay, what is your biggest failure? What is your biggest achievement? So just like on your general leadership skills, you need to have like a few stories prepared. And finally, like you end the interview with a few questions for the interviewer. So preparing those questions as well. So once you have these themes, you have like multiple questions that kind of fit into these themes, and then you do like your responses to those questions, and then you kind of refine it, and then you practice your delivery, because every response can't be like more than 2 or 3 minutes. So all of this process kind of takes a lot of time, and mocks definitely are helpful.
Yeah, I think so. First of all, really good job. I think one of the things that I'm learning is it's important to invite couples to these interviews because the spouse always improves on the other's answers. So that's something which is there. But having said that, the piece that you kind of brought about is preparing for interview is a process. You've got to go through it, and the process that you went through, it's something which I think a lot of us understand. But the reason why some people stand out and others don't is that those who go through this process really well do each step, cross out all the T's, and are the ones who actually come out winning. Because I mean, the question is, typically in interviews, half the people make it through, the other half do not. I mean, that's typically a 50% selectivity, and over there. So why is it? What happens to the half? Why do some people don't make it through the interview? I think part of it is also the preparation piece. Of course, I mean, it's not that they're not great. It's just
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is it is a competition in the end.
absolutely.
So okay. Um, I have how long? Just one more minute. Did you guys use an optional essay?
We talked about us
Yeah,
applying as a couple also in our optional essay, right?
yeah.
In addition to the, I think that was our optional essay.
Yeah. That was our optional essay. So we wanted to basically like let the admissions team know that both of us are applying together, and this school means a lot to us. And the way we did that was using our optional essay. Uh, yeah, and for nothing more than that.
Okay. All right. So I think we are at that 40-minute mark right now, and let's just look at questions that we have. We promised people to take on questions. Um, so here is the first question by Kosif. He says, "I'm 35 years. I want to enroll for MBS programs. What do you should you think at this age that would be advisable?" I think he says MBA when he says MBS. He meant MBA. So because S is right next to A on the keyboard.
Yeah.
So yeah. Let me ask this: what would be the age of the oldest person in your full-time MBA class at TAC?
33, 34.
33, 34. Yeah.
33,
That's the
34.
oldest we know. There could be someone older also.
They could be
But
someone.
probably not older than that. Yeah.
Okay, all right. In Europe, the age does go higher. I mean, European MBAs, I mean, I know IMD Switzerland, the average age is what, 29, 30. That's kind of the median age over there. So I'm sure they have, and IMD is also a fairly small program. I mean, it's even smaller than TUC, if I remember correctly. So European schools, absolutely. I think you need to have the right reason to do an MBA at this age. What would it add to your career? I have seen people do an MBA. I think the other question which would be there is why not an executive MBA or a part-time MBA versus the why the full-time MBA? And if we can justify that, I think that would be good.
Absolutely.
So I always, I mean, 2017, I went to UCLA, the oldest, and I asked us the same question. And the response that I got from their admissions director was that the oldest student who was in the full-time MBA class was 47 years old.
Wow.
So yes. So let's look at another piece. I think this question is for you. So the question is, software engineer, 6 years of work experience, software engineer to consulting. Is that a good enough transition? What's the challenge in the application that you need to show? Number one, number two. So first of all, can that transition happen post a top MBA? Number one, number two. How do you make it happen through the application? What do you want to show?
I think
The
the
transition happen is something I would like to say to answer the first one.
go ahead.
I was answering the first one. You answer the next one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So I was saying that the person will be able to switch to consulting post MBA for sure. The only thing is to justify in the MBA application. Essentially, what they want to show is that it's a career pivot in one way. You have to understand that B schools can offer you as an international student. They offer you three career outcomes. You can do consulting, you can do tech, or you can do investment banking.
Yeah.
So investment banking anyway the person does not want to do, and for the other two, you can see tech will be an easier thing to justify, but that person does not want to do it, I'm guessing. So you can of course write consulting, but think of what kind of consulting you'd want to do, which will be easily linkable to your past experiences. You were a software engineer, so maybe something in digital strategies would make sense, and then of course you can justify that you want to make that switch, and the story would kind of link to each other and would make sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like the switch definitely is possible. At B schools, consulting firms actually look for people with diverse backgrounds, and there's no like till the time you can like ace your interviews and do your networking right. I'm sure like there's no hurdle that you can that you cannot make the switch right. However, having said that, I think in your application it's very important to uh, like and like make the adcoms understand as to why do you want to do consulting, like what's your long term objective and where does consulting fit in, and also given your past experience how can you land that job, because one of the concerns that B school adcoms have is whether the short term goal is realistic for the candidates or not, right? Like if I am coming from tech, if I write that I want to do hedge fund, they'll be kind of surprised as to why am I choosing hedge funds. But if I do have a solid enough reason, they might actually buy it. But it's very important to link every piece of your story and what you have done in the
I
past.
think it's also important to demonstrate that in your current role, you've been in
Exactly.
some way a consultant.
Yeah.
Another thing I would like to say is that in the short term, your goal has to be realistic, but all your ambitious aims, like larger than life goals, you have to have in your long term. And when I say realistic, I don't have an example right for this particular case, like software engineer to consulting switch. But you should really check employment reports of all the schools you're applying to, and be very sure of what you want to do. Is it going to be possible from that school? One very common mistake people make in the field I was coming from, I was in investing. If I want to continue doing that in the US, it likely won't be possible for me or easy for me, because there are not many jobs. 2% people get those jobs in B schools. So if I write that as an international applicant, that is an immediate red flag for the AdCom. And similarly, there will be other industries. I'm just giving an example which was personal to me. And I have seen a couple of friends not get in when they were writing that goal. And when they made their goal realistic, they got in. Nothing else changed. So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind when you are
I
applying.
have seen that too. I mean, one of the things is you write your post MBA goal. The first thing the admission officer is going to do is, if they're not certain that whether pre MBA to post MBA transition is possible, they're going to go to the Center of Career Development and say,
Yeah,
"Do you think that's possible for this particular person?" If they say no, no matter your GMAT score, no matter your application, you'll be rejected.
Yes.
that's true.
So just make sure. And I think, but talking to current students would make a lot more sense to really say, is there someone who's from this background and that person has made that transition or is planning to make that transition at that particular school? And I mean, that's kind of where the choice of school also is a lot more interesting. I mean, for example, the case that you talked about is probably not possible at 95% of schools, but at a school such as Harvard, you probably can
Yes.
go into
Yeah.
investing
Yeah.
because the hedge funds do hire a
Right.
lot from there. So I think
Right.
just knowing where you're going
Yeah.
is also a big piece.
Right.
Okay, I think the 2 year versus 1 year. Why did you guys go in for a 2 year? I mean, program. What does that do? The same person is asking career switch 2 year versus 1 year.
Right. So one, like for me, like one of my main reasons to go for a US MBA was to, because I belong to the tech industry. I wanted to remain in tech, and I wanted to, because US is probably at like sort of the pinnacle of tech innovation alongside China in the world, and I wanted to explore this ecosystem. And I felt that if I had pursued a 1 year MBA, I would have probably not had enough time to kind of immerse myself here and also like do academics, recruiting, and know more about the place. So a 2 year MBA gives me more time to explore a lot more avenues, which a 1 year MBA would not have had for me. But
Got
uh, having said that, like, if somebody is doing a career switch, it's always better to go for a 2 year MBA, because with the internship, you can always make a case for a full time job later. But if you're doing your 1 year MBA, a lot of recruiting actually is predicated on your past experience, and it becomes even more challenging to make that switch happen.
Not only that, I think I'm going to talk about the other piece here. The question over here is how did you select a consultant? But coming back to the 2 year MBA, it's like 70 to 80% of people who actually do an internship end up working in the same
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah.
And also during the second year, you're not limited to one. You can do a second or a third internship
Yeah.
too during the second year. So that option does exist as well.
Right.
So yeah, how do you choose a consultant? How did both of you chose different consultants? And so I think Abhilash, for you, I'm going to start with you over here.
Yeah. So I think for me, it was very important uh, that the consultant sort of style of working kind of matched my style of working. We kind of aligned on, okay, the timelines, on kind of the philosophy of our applications. So that was one, like aligning the work ethic and the work style. The second thing for me was uh, whether the consultant I'm working with has had past experience of sending people to schools that I'm looking for. So doing a lot of so I had a lot of people in my network who had worked with Mansi, and they had like great things to say about her. So that kind of feedback definitely helped in uh, making that choice. Yeah, I think those are the two major things that I kind of looked for.
So this is no different than choosing a GMAT prep company. Look for whether they've delivered the scores and look for if your friends have used it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like,
So
yeah, whether like, so definitely like one, whether the person has delivered the results or not, and second, like, is like that person the right person for you, because you might have a very different style,
working style also is
working
really
style,
important.
right? Yeah.
The equivalent of checking the free trial out.
Exactly.
Yeah, but in this case, you can't have a free trial, and you get only one call.
You
And
get only one call, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
uh,
hence, like,
which is
feedback
why
is even more important.
friends' feedback, I think, is the most important thing in this industry. Be it GMAT coaching, MBA applications of consultants, and any other resources that go here. I think that works very well. But for me, you guys talked about working style, right? So, in addition to all the reviews, and I didn't have any person in common, so I only had access to reviews and um, YouTube videos where people talk about their journey and give feedback. Uh, what was important for me was that this was not a company where a lot of people were working and one of them would come and advise me. I wanted someone individually invested in my journey, which is something I got from my consultant.
Yeah, so
And
I
I
think
think,
that's true for both of you, single
yeah,
person companies,
exactly.
and yeah, so I think that's also really really important. The person consultant should be invested in your success,
I think
and
it becomes very hectic for the consultant, but it's a good value add for the
yeah,
applicant.
yes. Okay, uh, I have two questions which I think are I don't know if it's I definitely know it's Abhilash's. It makes sense for Abhilash to answer, but just there's a question here. There's a student who said I left my C and I'm shifting into my perspective on finance to marketing. How do you justify gap switches? So this one I think both of you can take. The other one is more for Abhilash.
Right. I think, see, even if like I look at my background, like I kind of was working in consulting, then moved to social impact, then moved to venture capital, and then moved to
Yeah,
uh, tech, right?
Alisha
Like, so,
moved from stats to VC. So
right. So I think one thing is like that worked in my favor was basically having, so like find a common theme in your jobs and kind of make your story around that. So one thing that I found common in majority of my work experience for the last 4 years was tech. So I kind of said, I'm very passionate about tech and especially like small merchants, and hence I want to like develop tech solutions that help me empower small merchants in the future. And I used the theme of tech to build my entire application around it. Now it was easier for me to do because a vast majority of my last like 4 years, like 4 years, 4.5 years out of 7 years, and that too like towards the later stage was kind of conforming to that trend. But had I like made a switch very early on, and I would have like just like probably 1 year into a job, and then I'm applying, then it becomes very difficult for me to justify myself. But the overarching theme is just like identify one common theme. It can be like a functional theme, it can be like in an industry theme or a clientele theme, uh, and then just like move forward with that.
got it. Yes, Alisha.
For me, I have two job switches, right? So I moved from investment banking to venture capital, which is a very natural switch that people make.
Yes.
But the theme used to explain this switch was healthcare. That I moved to a healthcare focused VC fund, and I discovered my interest in this niche because I was working on a couple of healthcare transactions in IB. So I felt like exploring this field from another lens. Like I have been helping companies raise capital, now I'm going to invest money in those companies. So similarly, if you can find any theme, like any sector or something that you're interested in, that you can talk about, that I was very interested in. I don't know much from this, but if it's edtech, for example, I worked in one function, now I'm trying another one. And that's how you can maybe make your story, by showing passion for one particular sector. Or another thing I would like to add is that the career gaps that people have in the initial years can still be excused. Like, firstly, you don't have to explain anything which is less than 3 months in
Yeah.
terms of gap. Secondly, if
Because
it's
it happens in the US, by the way.
yeah. uh, so, and if it's in the initial years, you have a lot of room to cover it up. You are not going to apply in before 4 to 5 years of at least 3 to 5 years you need. So this will be a very small portion of your overall experience by then. What seems right now that like 1 full year I've been out of college and I am unemployed, will seem like 1 out of 5 or 6 years later on. So that is also something you need to keep in
I
perspective.
think the big thing which is there is B schools want to make sure you are employable today. and well
Yes,
employable
Exactly.
today.
not
If
what
you
you were 5 years
Yeah,
back.
what you were 3 years back or so, you may have had a 5 6 month gap, but after that, if you've had a really good career, it doesn't matter because you're
Absolutely.
employable today. Now, coming back to this particular case, also moving from finance to marketing. I mean, maybe you're so good in finance, your company requested you to be in marketing. That's so great. I mean, in terms of doing well in any function, the attributes needed, the technical skills may be different, but the attributes, the personal attributes that you need, they are very similar regardless of whether you work in finance or in marketing. I mean, if you think about it, Tim Cook was the operations and finance guy at Apple who's running the company right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just the attributes that are there. So this is a question for you, I think, Alisha, which is, I mean, I don't think you had a senior leadership role at any company. I know Abhilash did. So is it important to
Yeah.
get into an M7 school? And again, I know it says after 30 plus age, but just kind of let's talk about the senior leadership role separately, individually.
Yeah, so for me, it's applicable. I'm 26. I'm turning 27 now. So I was 26 when I was applying. So maybe there's a difference there. But in terms of senior leadership role, if you attend any B school event, what they're going to tell you is that a lot of people ask this question. So their common answer is always that we don't check your leadership based on your titles. It's dependent on all the things Abhilash said initially: influencing without authority, taking initiatives inside and outside of work. So, if you have those things, and if for any project that you have worked on, you don't have someone directly working under you, but you have worked in a team which you were leading that initiative, irrespective of how old the other person was. That is leadership that you can show. If you led a project outside of your work, that is also leadership that you can show. So there are many ways to show it. And M7 top 10, I think I'm not so sure about M7 because I didn't end up applying, but I think the theme everywhere is going to be the same.
It's Ivy. You're in an Ivy League school, right? So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in that case, but yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah, and I think like what like more than the title, it's the career growth that kind of matters, especially if you are like 30 plus. Like people will look at, okay, where did you start and where are you now? And if you haven't moved, be it in terms of promotions or be it in terms of increase in responsibilities over the years, then like people will be skeptical about it. But if you have grown immensely, and even if you are not there at a senior leadership position, but you can demonstrate that you have grown immensely and your your responsibilities have increased, that can be a very good thing to talk about in your applications.
Okay.
Yeah.
And since we're talking about an M7, we actually have a session with Leon, who's going to who's studying at Columbia next week. So definitely attend that and also ask Leon that question. We can share that link, Karthike or Manisha, we can share that link. That'd be great. It's also, I mean, scheduled on our YouTube community or so. I think, Abhilash, this is a question for you. You have a CFA, right? So does that help? In an ICWAI is Institute of Cost and Works Accountancy, if I remember correctly.
Honestly, like I do not have any authority to kind of speak on this topic, but like I'll probably share my personal experience from what I've like observed through my journey and like through some of the people like who have also been successful in MBA applications. uh, a CFA is not like any like sort of professional degree is not a replacement for the core aspects of an application. So it can't replace like a bad GMAT score or sort of patchy work experience. But what it does is, in case you have like sort of a slight weakness in certain aspect of the application, can help overcome it. For example, if you have like if you do not come from a quantitative background and you scored probably not so great in quant section of the GMAT, then probably a CFA can help you uh, like inspire confidence in the outcome that you can actually take on uh, quantitative subjects in the MBA, like in the MBA course. But it can't replace the core applications, and hence like it's probably like a good to have but not a must have. Like I'm not sure what is the marginal utility of having an additional like CA or a like CFA
It's
degree.
really talking like an MBA student, marginal utility.
The
Yeah.
one thing it
Did you
helps
just
you
come
with
from
is,
an economics class or what?
yeah, we just had Manic yesterday.
Yesterday we
But one
had
thing it
managerial
can help you
economics,
with
so it was
is
fresh.
getting course exemptions when you are in the MBA. So if you have a CFA, you can automatically skip accounting, which will save you time for recruiting. but spending so much money and time
Certain
on
courses.
CF beforehand for
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
I don't know how much of a value add it is.
Yeah, so I've asked this question to admission directors as well directly when we meet them or as a part of our AGAC, and I think the only case in which the NNS where it helps is, and this guy's from an engineering background. If you truly want to go in finance post your MBA, then this adds as a supporting factor to really say you're truly interested in finance. Or cost working is finance and accounting and operations and audits and all. So if you truly want to do that as a post MBA, I think it does help you show that you've done something in that space. But again, the professional piece has to come with it. Have you utilized this knowledge in a professional aspect? If you made an impact with that knowledge, is something that would be there in this
So
case.
it's a supporting piece, not a differentiating piece.
It's not. It's if you have the other differentiating piece, it actually amplifies that. But if you don't have the other differentiating piece, then that amplification means nothing. Just the fact that you have a certification is not by itself going to stand out.
yeah.
Uh, I mean, as we really say, if you want to, the very fact that if you want to become a CFO, and if you say that's your post MBA goal eventual, they're not going to be interested in how good your Excel or your data analysis skills are. What they'll be focused on is how good your negotiation skills are, where you can not give money to someone and still make them happy, because that's what CFAs do in many ways. Or CFOs do. I'm sorry.
Right.
What's the individuality of TAC,
Yeah.
Yogesh? Asked this question. How you approach this piece. I think we asked this. How you approach this? What was your individuality that you kind of highlighted? And again, I know it's an hour past the hour. I don't know if how long you guys have. Just want to make
We
sure.
have time. Abhilash has class. I don't.
Okay.
I'll just give one small example. I don't want to share too much about my essays, but one example that I would like to share is that the points that we were talking about, the school is very heavy on collaboration, on culture, and one thing that everyone will say is tough people are nice. Actually, I think this was also the essay prompt a few years back or something.
It was. It was. Yes.
So these things they really care about, and they want to see all of that in your profile. And along with it, they want to see how are you different, like any unique thing about you or something. But primarily, the focus is on your collaborative nature, on the kind of examples you have had. So from all the leadership instances I was talking about from outside of my work, I picked out a few, and I talked about how I have tried to collaborate, how I believe in the culture of collective growth, how I have tried to collaborate in teams to better society, which can eventually, sometime later in this future, make me a wise, decisive leader who betters the world through business. So these kind of instances come after very, like, it's sometimes, people don't even know that they have done something, but when they do that introspection, they figure out those stories. So try to do that and figure out what kind of individual qualities that you have, which tuck would like, and usually people have. If you're thinking about applying to tuck, I'm guessing you would have some of those.
And I think just to really say this, I was just looking at this question. We didn't get to that one where it says TUC students are encouraged and collaborative and empathetic even when it's not convenient or easy. That's kind
Yeah,
of one of
I
the
have.
fabric,
Yeah.
fabric of. It's kind of a part of the fabric of TUC,
Yeah.
and you do explicitly answer this question while doing that. Okay. This is a question which I think you guys can answer really well, and only you can answer. Tech recruiting landscape for someone from a business non-tech background. You guys are in many ways non-tech. You're not engineers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Abhilash, please take this one and tell me also, because I have been trying to find an answer to this question and oscillating between two career goals. But yeah, jokes apart, we can answer this.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of so tech recruiting is improving quite significantly across all USB schools. As more tech companies prosper, they're coming even more to the campuses now. Uh, Typically for internationals, what happens is you have ample opportunities to recruit in big tech. Uh, so your Amazon, Microsoft, like Google, all of these companies, like they come up, like they hire like a lot of students who are MBAs, Then you also have opportunities to recruit at tech companies who are not big tech but are fairly large. For example, Uber, Lyft, Rivian, these companies. The challenge is if you recruit for companies. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, you're audible. Yes, absolutely.
Hey, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. The challenge is if you want to, if you're looking for uh, like very early stage or growth stage tech companies in the US, then it's a challenge to recruit for them because they do not always sponsor your visa. So as an international, that's a pretty important condition. So the universe that you have is the big tech companies and the large US tech companies. And if you are coming from a non-tech or a business strategy background, that's still fine because they come for roles which do not require any tech expertise. So if you do your interviews well, if you apply for the right jobs, you do have a very good chance of getting into these companies.
That's good. Um, Alicia, hopefully you got your answer too.
Yeah. No, I actually have my call with my career advisor this Friday, and Abhilash has had it, and he's more.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. That's another one of those other benefits that you get at pretty much most top schools. You have career, you engage with your career advisors very, very early. I mean, you guys are about in
Yeah.
your first month right
And they are
now.
really good. And we
They're
had access to them in summer. So in summer, we could attend. Actually, can I just mention this? One thing about Tuck. In the summer, I think May onwards, we had access to like dozens of sessions every day, not every week, like every day, Monday to Friday. Some will be about how to interview, how to build your resume, how to just general stuff about Tuck also, but career related there used to be a lot of sessions, how to select an industry, then an entire access on Tuck Connect about deciding between industries, then for each industry how does one prep. I didn't do a lot of it, but just that having that access felt like, the school is really invested in my goals. And I talked to a lot of other friends in certain other schools, which I will not name. People did not have all of that. So this was a really great thing. It made me felt like, someone really cares about me. Someone is so invested in my career aspirations.
That's, I think, when we spoke about this earlier, you mentioned this, and I was quite surprised too. And not only that, I was very surprised with regards to the stats that you had as to from this background, how many people go to that industry at
Yeah.
this company, and so on and so forth. So I mean, the very fact that Tuck's very open about sharing that data even before students join it. I mean, you'd put in your deposit,
Yeah.
but you could technically still not go to Tuck.
Yeah.
At that point, you guys still had
Yeah.
access to that. That shows how confident they are about the outcomes they deliver. Okay, Leon's session, here's the link if you've not. Um, I'm going to take two more questions, which is uh, PM roles, can leverage the courses, career services, and all. So I think briefly, let's talk about this. I think the foundation of this, Alicia already talked about this, but program management, please,
Yeah. So I
I
think for
think,
product management, you
product
basically
management, yes.
have. Yeah. So for product management, one, you have the tech club, and there basically all the second years who have successfully recruited uh, in tech for product management roles, they kind of help and coach you for these interviews. So that's one. Then the second thing is there's a product management course at the Thayer School of Engineering, which is like right opposite to Tuck. It's part of the Dartmouth University, but you can actually go and attend classes there, and you fundamentally build your skills about product management, right? The third thing is we have a career advisor. Her name is Laura. She primarily sits out of the West Coast. She's a Tucky herself, and she specializes in product management jobs and all the tech jobs. So if you do want to like get into product management, she'll sit with you one on one, like literally 2 or 3 times a week, and tell you, okay, what do you need to do? How do you need to craft your resume? She will do mocks with you. She was mentioning that she probably did like some 20 to 30 mocks with one student like in one recruiting season, and that's just like one advisor. You can literally do like some 80 to 90 mocks for
And you
all
don't
the
pay extra for that, right?
no.
no, no.
That's a lot of effort someone's putting in.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So like so you have these like various resources, and and finally, like, you have these alums, right? Like, tuck is actually known for its for the strength of its alumni network, and you do have like a lot of tuck alumni working at a lot of these tech companies in product management roles. So you can always like just reach out to them over email, and more like almost always they'll reply to you and they'll guide you as to how to approach interviews and how to approach the job applications. So I think those are some of the things that are that you can leverage at tuck.
Okay. All right. Last question. I don't know if either. I don't know. You probably don't have a low GPA, but do you know how it impacts? Any insights on this?
Nisha, do you want to take it up?
You think I have a low GPA?
I didn't know, but like generally.
So I used to think that okay, in all honesty, I don't have as high a score as Abhilash does. He was some university rank 6. I was not like in the bottom 6, but I was not in the top 6 either in my class of 30-35. So I was somewhere in the middle.
Hold on. You're not talking about the classical GPA. You're talking about the rank here, and which I think is a very key piece over here.
I had a 73 point something percent, which is
Yes,
not amazing by any standards because my class highest was way more than this, right?
but your
Uh,
rank was.
I don't know actually. I never found because I never wanted to find out.
Hmm.
And so, by the way, like the rank thing in the application is not mandatory; it's optional. So I chose to not fill it. Abhilash chose to fill it,
Got
and
it.
it's okay. We both are here. But anyway, irrespective of that, usually what happens is if you have a low GPA in college, uh, of course, like they are not benchmarking you to someone who is studying a course which gets high score. Like they will not benchmark stats, which I studied to BCom, which gets very high percentages, right? So they will know what kind of GPAs people in your ECA branch usually get, and they will benchmark you in comparison to that. Without knowing what score you have, I can only say a few things. Do something additional now coursework wise, which can supplement for the the low GPA. Get a very 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 high GMAT score where Rajat will help you, of course. e-GMAT is known for that. And if you still feel that it's too low, then you can explain it in your optional essay, like what is it that you did. Maybe there was some reason it was because of a drop in your scores in one semester. Like whatever the reason is for you, you can always explain it, but usually these things suffice.
Yeah, I mean, your GPA is a representation of how consistent you are. Your GMAT score helps there. It shows the capability you possess. And if you've had a good career, then I think your GPA is not as important. If you had a consistently growing career, good GMAT score, because I mean, remember the GPA was 4 or 5 years back. But if you've been considered a good performer there, if you have a bad GPA, not I would say an above average career, then I think it's for me that's an issue. So so
Yeah.
so that for me is this thing. Okay, last question. I think this is simple. Did you apply through early action?
Yes, I did.
And
Okay,
I
what
did.
about
uh, Abhilash didn't.
I did not.
you? Did not. Okay.
Yeah.
So I did because I was not very. I It wasn't a commitment in the sense like Duke has. You early action at Tuck means that you will get a guaranteed interview, but your result does not come early. Your result comes in December only. So that
Yes.
was there, and I felt that. I mean, if you're getting a guaranteed interview, why not use that chance? Why should I give them an opportunity to reject me before interviewing me?
That's
So
true.
I came from a profile with the 710 GMAT, no branded workplaces on my CV, and what else? Yeah, so and 5 years of work experience, and no
I
like extreme like some operations head or something in my job titles, right? So this was a great opportunity for me
Let's
to.
not call it extreme. Let's call it super stellar. Extreme can have a negative connotation as well, but yes,
Yes.
yeah, that's very well said. I mean, the example is really good. Yes,
Yeah,
I agree
so
with.
I used that, and I was very nervous before my interview because I didn't have anyone else to ask, right? That what do they ask? What happens? I didn't even know that the interview will happen so early. 1st September I applied. 20th or 22nd was my interview, which is when I was still applying to Ross and I don't know if there was any other school. I think there was just one school. So, you know, managing that, so I got like 2-3 days to prepare. But I did a good job. Like, you know, I was doing all those other things that I told you, just apart from the core questions, making that list of behavioral and fit questions. And I think I aced my interview. I had a very good interview.
So the thing which is there is, if
Yeah.
you get, so the downside is, if you get an interview, you don't know if it's because of your application or because they're fulfilling their
Yes.
application.
Which is what I also didn't know. I thought, you know, maybe they just interviewed me because they had to.
But if you are a good interviewee, then you
Yes.
know you can use that to your advantage, and if you prepare well for your interview.
I still feel I'm here because of my interview.
But the other downside is you will not hear after your interview for 3 months.
You manage that period. I mean, I had one rejection in between that from Duke early action, and Abhilash knows how I was after that for 2 days. But you get over it. It's okay.
Yeah.
When you're
Yeah,
done
I
with
mean,
the
overall,
second,
it's a net positive. Yes, you have that mental
But
trauma for 3 months. But Abhilash, for you, what was it like? I mean,
yeah, I would probably say that. So one, I had like a really bad work schedule at that time. So even though
for
I
your
wanted
interview.
for like no, I did not apply in early action. I did want to apply, but
Mhm.
my work schedule was so bad that I couldn't like put in like a decent enough application. So I kind of optimized for the fact that my application needs to be strong, and even if I'm compromising for a guaranteed interview slot, that I'll probably do so. But like I can't compromise on the quality of my application just because I'm getting a guaranteed interview slot.
yeah,
So that's another thing I would say that okay, even if you can like get a guaranteed interview, don't compromise on the quality of your application. If you feel that applying later you'll be able to put in a better application, do that. That's more important than uh, applying early.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why round one exists. Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
there's a reason why they declare the results of early action with the results of round one
Right,
pretty much at the same
right,
time. So,
right.
I mean, they want to get more people in the funnel and then make a decision. So early
Yeah,
action in round one, in many ways, outcome wise, it's not very different if you have a good
yeah.
application.
Right, right.
yeah, and people are here. Like, there's probably an equal split between round one and round two, and you know the future
Amongst
baby
the admits, okay.
in the admits who are here. So definitely, like, apply when your application is ready. Don't apply looking at deadlines. And this early guaranteed interview thing happens in round two also, by the way. So you can always use that.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
1st December I think is the deadline.
Very, very interesting. I did not know that. Okay. Well, I think thank you very much, both Abhilash and Alisha. So that's it was a very enjoyable session, an hour and 17 minutes, and we still have I think about 50 people, 37 on YouTube, another 10 to 12 on LinkedIn or so. And it was really good. Thank you for all your answers. It was a pleasure hosting both of you. And Abhilash, thank you for stretching despite having a class.
Thank
So
you. Thank
yes,
you,
so
Rajat.
Thank you so
yes.
much. Bye.